the Holy Bible, and then just a big old Barnes & Noble sticker on it. New York Times bestseller.
Or you know when you see movie posters on a cover?
Oh, yeah.
You walk into the Bible, you see like Jesus from a movie right on there. And on the back, it's like God recommends. So that's...
If the Bible's so good, why isn't there a Bible 2?
Well, there is. Old and New Testament.
That is true.
Oh, see?
Why isn't there a Bible 3? Well, there is. The Mormons. I'm not going to read a biography of reality. I already don't like reality. Why would I spend my free time learning more about reality? Ugh, gross. Get away from me. No more.
Fiction's honestly more real than non-fiction.
Honestly, it gets into the psyche of the soul and whether the future of our society is actually going in a positive or negative direction.
You're right. I feel like right here.
Like, honestly, it's like right here, then
It's right here. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another to Ramble episode. I'm one of your hosts, Austin.
And I'm the other one, Richard.
And guess what, Richard? We're talking about a list today, not just a list, the list.
The inferior list.
To the Rambles list.
To the Rambles.
I love that you said that. I would have said the same thing. But you see all these books behind us. How many of them have #1 New York Times best-selling author? Whatever the author is, or whoever.
Number one, less, but just New York Times best-selling author.
That as well.
Probably 95% of them.
And as a reader, we've been readers before we had a pod. We read a couple books here and there. We'd always see this New York Times bestseller thing, right? And you go, oh, neat. Or maybe you go, don't pay attention to it. Whatever it is, there's this question. Sanderson posted a video, of course. Every video of ours comes from a Sanderson comment or something. He posted a video just talking about what the New York Times bestseller list is. And he did that in 2 minutes. We're going to do that in about an hour. So we're going to go over how does the list work? How do you make the list? And why is it so controversial? And why do so many people cheat the system? And you love a good cheating the system, don't you?
I do like it when you stick it to authority. It's good.
Yeah,
it's always a good feeling.
So first off, this whole thing, because as a reader yourself, weren't you curious of just like, the New York Times bestseller list, you see it all the time. It's one of those things that just piques your curiosity. And you go,
Well, it always was confusing of just how exactly does it work? How do certain books, like why is the Bible not just always there?
One thing about the list, this list is curated by selecting specific independent bookstores. So the New York Times is a trade secret. We don't know which bookstores that they're selecting, but they go around, they pick these bookstores, and they compile the selling data from there to tell them, okay, this one's selling more than this one, and you put it higher on the list. They specifically don't include books like the Bible or Dante's Inferno or classics like that. Otherwise, the list would just be the Bible.
Yeah. Or Harry Potter. Just down the list.
Imagine seeing the Bible and Torah, and just one of them's #1 New York Times bestseller, one is #2.
Ooh.
Different religions are going, I gotcha. A Bible with New York Times bestseller, that would be corporatism.
That would be disgusting to look at. Like, imagine walking into your bookstore and you just see like the Holy Bible, and then just a big old Barnes & Noble sticker on it. New York Times bestseller.
Or you know when you see movie posters on a cover?
Oh, yeah.
You walk into the Bible, you see like Jesus from a movie right on there. And on the back, it's like God recommends. So
if the Bible's so good, why isn't there a Bible 2?
Well, there is. Old and New Testament.
That is true.
Oh, see?
Why isn't there a Bible 3? Well, there is. The Mormons.
So that's why they don't include the Bible.
I'm waiting for Bible part 4. That's what I'm waiting for.
That's Revelations. You don't want that one.
Yeah, that one's going to be written in some dark times.
So
Jesus himself is going to come back and have to handwrite that one, and I don't want to see what he has to write that on.
Oh boy.
I don't think pencils are going to be readily available to him.
What if Revelations is when you see a New York Times bestseller on the Bible, that's when he returns. That's it.
Doomsday.
So the thing about the New York Times bestseller list is we know things like this, that they don't include Dante's Inferno classics or the Iliad or stuff like that will always sell. Mm-hmm. What the New York Times bestseller does is they pick these independent bookstores and they curate the list in a way that the public doesn't know, so that they can prevent cheating the system. But to be honest, they don't really prevent it that much. We'll get into all the criticisms and why it is easy to cheat the system. But do you know anything else about how they curate the list?
As far as I know, there's a mix of what they have told the public and then their secret sauce. Mm-hmm. So what they have told the public is something along the lines of, within a 1 week period, if a book has sold something between roughly 5,000 to 10,000 copies minimum, that can get you onto the list. So if you sold somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 in a 1 week period from their hand curated independent bookstores, right, then you could get on the list. Then plus whatever their secret sauce is of their editorial board. Hey, we don't want this on the list. Hey, we have new numbers that we run something else. So however else they do it, but that's kind of what we publicly know.
Yeah, and again, this is not exactly the same, but similar to writer strike and where Netflix and other streaming services, they don't reveal their numbers for different reasons. So the New York Times not doing this. It really is one of those things, the numbers we don't exactly know.
Yeah.
All we know is that they have a trade secret, and all we can gather from it are the results and how you get onto there, which is the more interesting part of the conversation. Mm-hmm. How they do it, they do their thing. You have New York Times, you have USA Today, they all have their lists. Before we go into how you make the list and what the result of making the list is, you got to be honest. As much as do you go and buy a book because it's New York Times best-selling right there?
Not once.
Never
once.
Why do you pick up a book?
Because either a friend recommended it to me or a YouTuber that I respect and value their opinion of said it was a good book, and I'll pick it up. Or the more likely reason, the cover looked cool when I walked in the store, and so I bought it.
Or a patron selects it for the book club of the month.
That's also true. Which segues right into our sponsor, us. Join our book club. It's money that you give to us, and then you join our exclusive Discord where you read a book with us and also community members. It's great fun. It gives us money. It gives you community.
And not just that, you get to vote and force us to read a book with you and talk about it with you.
Yeah.
There you go.
You just have to have very convincing pitches. If you're the extrovert that knows how to give a good, rousing speech, go ahead.
Like Darrow of Lycos. Yeah. Okay.
Join and convince everyone onto your side and get us to read your book of choice. Anyway,
what's this month's book? Oh, this month's book is How to Lose the Time War. How you lose the time war.
Yep.
And we're having Empire of Silence this weekend, so that's going to be cool.
Yep.
So, segueing back now, what were we talking about? We were talking about, the list and how you make the list and everything, right? So, going back to what inspired this video real quick with Sanderson is when he was talking about how making the list and where his books place and does it matter for him, is he was talking about how Harry Potter sold over and over and over again, so many copies for so many weeks that it was just Harry Potter number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and so on. And so the New York Times, what they did with their list is now you see different categories of hardcover or ebook plus this or biography and for the list, by the way, if it was just one curated list, you know what would be number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? All autobiographies, all nonfiction. We are in the minority, Rich, to say fantasy, sci-fi, dystopian specific. God, we picked the worst niche ever. We got no.
There's not a big audience for Neuromancer.
That is a joke though. This is the best niche. Let's be honest.
It's the most fun niche.
It's cool.
Hey, look, when life gets you down and you don't want to be in reality,
you drink lemonade.
When you don't like the world going on, you'll read fantasy to get absorbed into something else. I'm not going to read a biography of reality. I already don't like reality. Why would I spend my free time learning more about reality? Ugh, gross. Get away from me. No more.
Fiction's honestly more real than nonfiction.
Honestly, it gets into the psyche of the soul and whether the future of our society is actually going in a positive or negative direction.
You're right. I feel like right here.
Like, honestly, it's like right here, then it goes
It's right here. Oh, we need a real job.
We need to touch grass.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
So, that's the other thing I wanted to go back to, was when you go to a shelf and pick up New York Times bestseller. It's not that you exactly look for that. And I want to use this analogy because this is a fun analogy and I like this. Mm-hmm. When I'm going to eat at a certain restaurant, I look for certain things. Now, of course, if a friend recommends you the restaurant, you're going to go to that restaurant more likely. But what's a good sign of a good restaurant is I look for a few things. One, are people in that restaurant? Is it packed to the brim? Is there a line? Ooh, they got good food. And two, is there the open kitchen? Because if there's an open kitchen, I'm going, they're not trying to hide something from me. They're there, they're being honest, they're being transparent, and I want to eat there. So what the New York Times bestseller list does is maybe it's not the... You don't
they don't have the open kitchen.
No. But they do have the packed restaurant. See what I'm saying? So if they have a packed restaurant and you go, other people are reading that, maybe it's not me going, oh, I'm reading that because it's a New York Times bestseller, but someone recommended it, and it being a New York Times bestseller, just like, hey, someone recommended this restaurant, plus it's packed. Oh, they probably recommended a good one.
A probably better analogy is just the Oscars, where how many people...
Before you do this analogy, can you just say it's also another analogy that's equitable to my analogy?
No, it's better.
Okay, go ahead.
Yours is inferior, right. Worse than. Below. Yes. the hierarchy is well established.
Insert another German 1940s reference.
But the Oscars. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, but most people don't watch a movie specifically. Oh, it won an Oscar. I'm going to watch it. Some, sure. Not many. The Oscars mean a hell of a lot more to the artist behind the work than it does to general audience members. We don't care nearly as much as that director or that actor. I think it's the exact same time with the New York Times bestseller list, where readers, some may care that it's on the list. Some may look at the newspaper and read it and go, oh, maybe I'll check it out. But for the most part, I think mostly New York Times, the authors care far more about this list than the readers.
If you made a New York Times bestseller list,
I would care a lot if I wrote, because it's an acknowledgement of success. It's not gonna give me success.
Yeah,
it's an acknowledgement that I've made it already. Right. Just like the Oscars, you get the Oscar means it's the finish line. I've made it.
It's already been a successful movie.
Exactly.
The cake's already made. You just need icing. That's it. Yep. It's just a little acknowledgement to that all the work you already did. And here's why the publishers really pushed to get this book onto the list, because even if you don't look for New York Times bestseller, because obviously we go by word of mouth, we go by all this, the quick numbers on this. I have a study. I'm sorry to bring this up. I know
study.
I know you don't like your studies. Okay,
gross.
Okay,
why don't you just give me your feelings and your just gut opinion?
How about even better? I give you the study. You give me your feelings based on the study.
Oh, wonderful. That's even better.
This was done in the early 2000s, but the sales after being on a New York Times bestseller list for a new author specifically increased sales by 57%. So it mattered a whole lot more if you were a first-time author to be on the list. But for people who have already been on the list, increased sales by 13 to 14%. Now, caveat that with being, hey, is that correlation equal causation? Because there's also the point of maybe word of mouth was just spreading more. It's not exactly because it was on the list that it sold more. But at the very least, there was a drastic increase for first-time authors rather than authors who have been there already. What are your feelings about that?
Well, I have a few questions about that study specifically.
Yeah.
So was it they took a look at the numbers before they got onto the bestseller list, and then after they were put onto the list, they sold at a higher percentage? Not just more, but at a higher rate?
Yeah.
Or was it just they did well? Like it's a new author, and they got onto the bestseller list and was like, oh, wow, that's a surprising amount.
It says appearing on the list increased a book's first-year sales by 13 to 14% versus for New Time authors increased first-year sales by 57%. So it was in that first year.
I'm just wondering what exactly their control study is. Like, are they taking a look at books that didn't make the list and then just looked at their annual sales and go, Because,
Yeah.
it didn't make the list, meaning it didn't sell a bunch of copies in whatever week period. So it's going to have lower sales overall. Like, do you get what I mean?
I get what you mean, but I wanted Richard feelings. I wanted your feelings, not
feelings.
Come on, could you stop? Forget the study.
Hogwash.
Okay,
poppycock. Good. Just gobbledygook.
Yeah, don't try to analyze it. What are you doing? What do you think this podcast is? Oh, jeez.
Also, point to note is that's 2000.
Yeah,
times have changed since then. The internet has become far more influential, I would say, than newspaper. In all honesty, YouTube. Bunch of different blogs.
Yep.
Oprah's list, way more influential than I think the New York Times. So,
all
a little
this.
hesitant.
I'm with you on. I don't consciously go to buy something that just has that on there. Just like I don't consciously go watch a movie that says, "Oh, this won an Oscar. I'll watch this movie now." It's an acknowledgement. It's definitely an increased factor. It's like that restaurant being packed. Okay, gives you the extra nod.
But here's the thing: think of all these types of awards, acknowledgments, where a Michelin star award or stamp of approval, whatever, that will get me to go to a restaurant. If I see a Michelin star, I'm like, 100%, I will go.
No, I'm not. That's expensive as hell. I see Michelin star, I'm running. I'm going, get me McDonald's 6-piece. You can have your Michelin star, but...
I just think I see it and I want to go.
As far as quality,
I just know the quality's going to be good. But the thing is, Michelin star is not a numbers based thing. It is just pure, like, editorial life. It's
an award.
It's an award, but there's no democracy to it. It's pure control, and that's what's so wonderful about it. They have a exclusive board, and they go through they go through the quality and they judge it, and it's the experts. I'm just saying, trying to leave these decisions to democracy, it's a little cringe.
You got your line in.
I got my line in. I can easily get it in.
Merch coming soon. So yes, your point of the Oscars, it's an award versus what this list is. It's not supposed to be an editorialized, you get to pick which one's your favorite. It's not a group of the New York Times. No, that's
the criticism.
That's where we'll get into the criticism and the controversy of it. But before we do that, the last thing is, how do you make the list?
What do you have on it?
What I have is that number you said earlier of 5,000 to 10,000-ish. If you sell 5,000 to 10,000 books in a week, you are likely to make the list. So there's some people that sold that much and didn't. It depends when you sell your book, what locations, because again, it's taking independent bookstores from across the country, and you don't know which exact ones that it's actually taking it from. But here's an interesting one I have of fewer than 500 books. There's 100,000 new hardcover specifically. So take this stat. There's 100,000 new hardcover print books published each year, and this was taken from 2008 to 2016. So good. How many years is that? 8 years. That was quick maths.
Quick maths. There.
So
good job.
fewer than 500 of those 100,000 make the New York Times bestseller list, and that's 0.5%. So if you today, Rich, published a hardcover book and you had it out there was a 1 in 200 chance it could be on the list. And then many novels, 26% of those only appear on the list for 1 week. So about a quarter of them are there for 1 week. And then it comes into this is where the numbers come in there of that, hey, you could sell 1,000 to 10,000 copies per week, but it fluctuates especially on the genre. So fiction might be a bit lower, whereas nonfiction, your biographies that we were talking about, might be a lot higher because name any celebrity that publishes a book and you automatically have the name recognition and it's put in the front everywhere and it's in front of all Barnes & Nobles and you'll sell a ton more. So that's the numbers I found. And I thought it was interesting that, you know how there's that funneling for new authors or for people who haven't finished their book yet. I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself, okay?
Yeah.
That haven't finished your book yet.
I will say, I want to while we're on camera, I just want to get a little dig at you, but you agreed to have your first draft finished by January 1st, that it would be on my desk, ready to start sending out. Is that was your draft 1 on my desk?
Richard, the funny thing about that is that was your deal to me. you said, Austin, you have 3 months. And I said, Rich.
No, I said you had 1 year.
No, this was like 3 months ago.
No, I said this a year ago.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It what? Uh-huh.
Roll the clip. Roll the clip, Austin. I'll roll the clip of that video 3 months ago. If it was, oh, wow. Oh, God. But
Anyway.
it will be done. It will be done.
All right. You're getting penalized for every day it's not on my desk.
You'll read one less page
Yeah.
every day that it's late. I love it. So, wait, what was that thought off of? What were we talking about? Oh, yeah. For authors out there, the funneling system of there's so few people that actually finish their books. Don't look at me. Don't look at me like that. So there's so few people that actually finish their books. Once you get it finished, there's a percentage of those that actually get published. And the percentage of those that actually get published, so many have a hardcover. And the percentage of those that get hardcover have a 0.5% chance of making it on the list. So it's a funnel.
It is difficult. It's not an easy list to make.
Which is why when we're getting into the criticisms now of the list, and I want to start off with this and why this list can be controversial. There's a specific company that is made and advertises this, that they exist for the sole purpose of getting your book onto the New York Times bestseller list. It's a company that says, you pay us, we will get you on the list. We will get that stamp on there, and publishers will go to them because of the way they're able to scheme the system. There was actually a book published, I forget the author's name, but there was a book published on how to cheat the New York Times bestseller list. Did you see that?
I did see that, yeah.
So what do you think about that? There being a literal company that's there that you could pay them to give you a guarantee that you'll have a New York Times bestseller.
It defeats the purpose, because if you hire that company, I mean, it's the same way of if you get a degree but you cheated your way to it. It's like, well, now you have a useless degree. Good for you. It doesn't really mean much. The potential backlash for that when they find out that you paid the company to do that, I think is worth way more than the potential reward of getting on that list. That's my thought.
Yeah, there's a lot. I don't know who does this. I know politicians do this a ton, but a lot of authors, one way they'll try to cheat the system, I think you found this in your research too, I'm sure, where what the New York Times bestseller list does, if you bulk order copies and you bulk order a ton quickly, 10,000 copies at these bookstores specifically, and try to get this really pushed out there just so you get on the list for a week and then can forever say you were a New York Times bestselling author. So what that company does and what a bunch of authors try to do to cheat the system or to get on a list is they'll buy a bunch of copies at once or bulk order them to libraries, to this, that, wherever, and then get themselves on the list. Now, the New York Times response to that, you know the response?
Yeah, the response is a classification of what technically is a bulk order. I believe the bulk order number is 30 books in one particular time at one bookstore, with basically one person buying it. So what the counter to that is, you see these publishers and these companies buying 25, 29 books and just going under the bulk order.
Just trying it, yeah.
But then, of course, New York Times can kind of see that. It's pretty obvious.
Right.
So that's why it's not a hard number. It's a fluctuating editorialized list. So they can take a look at that. So New York Times already has a fix to it for some books where if they see a pattern like that where, hey, a good chunk of their orders for this week came from bulk orders or sub-bulk orders, then they can put this little dagger next to the title of the book on their New York Times bestseller list, and that is kind of the indicator of something's fishy. It's on the list, it made the sales, but something's off.
Rich, that's exactly, you did your research. That's exactly right.
I know. I actually read and looked into it.
That's good.
I know. Wow. I get to be the, researched one.
What has gotten into you? Talking about studies, research? Who are you?
I know. I'm not giving my feelings. That's terrible.
Well, what do you think about the criticism that because these bulk orders can happen, the New York Times bestseller, being a list and being a weekly list, there's the argument people will say of why the list is not as useful is you can get fast sales. For example, a book that sells 100,000 books but consistently throughout the year could not appear on the list, whereas a book that sells 10,000 in 1 week, but then let's say hundreds for the rest of the year, and it ends up only selling 20,000 copies by the end of the year. So over that year span, the consistent book did a hell of a lot better, but the week-to-week book that really sold well that one week and then fell off because nobody liked it gets to say New York Times bestseller list. And now that's just a flaw of it being a weekly list itself. Do you think they should have a yearly list, a monthly? What's the way of solving that, and is that a problem?
So it's twofold. One, it's not the fault of the New York Times for making a specific list of it basically tracking the sales numbers of by a week-to-week basis. And that's what it's for. Hey, look, these are the top books that sold this week. Good.
Cool.
Done. Turn around. What publishers and authors and other people do in reaction to that list is once you get on that list 1 week, they pop it on the book, and for years to come, that's the thing that's posted on their book and in advertisements. New York Times bestseller. It's stamped on there forever, even though it hasn't been on the list for weeks. And so the weekly list is treated like an annual or, a decade award.
It's treated like an award, like the Oscars. The Oscar is lifetime, but imagine having a weekly Oscar.
Yeah. So is it the New York Times' fault, or is it just how people tend to use it, and specifically publishers and advertisers? I think it's more on them. They're not using the list as they intend it to be used, but then you turn around, if New York Times wants to fix that, make a new award. That's kind of like the annual award where it's editorialized. It specifically is, hey, this year it sold this amount. And this is our top list for the year 2023.
Right.
That would probably solve that issue. And that way publishers can't just put that award on every book. And so it would take time because it's not an instant thing. New York Times would have to build. Not everyone knows what the New York Times bestseller list is. Not everyone knows their brand new thing. So they would take years for them to build up the reputation again of that new award. But it would probably solve some things where if I see a book have this, hey, this is the yearly award, only awarded once every year.
That's a bigums.
It makes more sense. There would be less of those. There'd be less of those stamps on the books in the store, and therefore making it more valuable.
Right, like your Michelin star.
Exactly. There's less Michelin star restaurants. It's a really exclusive list, meaning it's more valuable. Right now, everyone's a New York Times bestseller in Barnes & Noble, and so not as valuable.
And does it, maybe this is an analogy because we've been talking about movies in general, a blockbuster, not even your huge blockbuster, so don't think of a Marvel that got $2 billion from, I'm saying even a smaller blockbuster, like a small superhero movie, Black Adam. Mm-hmm. I bet you, I don't know the exact numbers, but take Black Adam or a similar blockbuster just movie of that sort, I guarantee you that probably sold more in a short period of time than Schindler's List did.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right? So Black Adam probably sold a lot more. It's for a larger audience.
It also, I think it still lost money.
Oh, yeah, it did lose money.
But that's because...
Which we felt vindicated because we had a review on this podcast and we hated the movie. So
many people disagreed with us at the time, calling us, Marvel stans, and it's like, no, we don't like any of them.
Well, some of the recent with Black Adam and
at the time, recent, yeah.
Also, the
recent
DC film. Yeah, anyways, we haven't seen a superhero movie in a while. I think that was one of our latest. Anyways, that's side tangent. But Black Adam probably had more recent weekly sales than Schindler's List did when it came out. But over time, and obviously they're going for different things and different audience ranges. Which movie would you say is the more successful? So again, it's a measure of a weekly popularity contest with the New York Times, which is just the nature of the list.
Well, that's the problem using sales numbers is basically putting this. It's giving over the control to democracy. And ultimately,
what a mistake!
Democracy is cringe.
This was such a mistake. This was my video idea, and I walked right into your entire motto.
Don't you understand? The people, peasants, don't know what's good for them. For some reason, they go, "Hey, that Prince Harry biography. Yeah, let's make that the best book of however months going by instead of." Lonesome Dove or something from Brandon Sanderson or Dune, whatever.
By
whatever
the way,
good book.
I'm pretty sure all the ones you named are bestsellers.
Yeah. Neuromancer. Fine. I'll do pick Neuromancer.
I think that was too.
Ah, damn. Yeah. Broken clock can be right twice a day.
That was 4 times. Sorry. Anyways. By the way, since you said you're teetering my totter right now. I haven't said it in a while. I just wanted to put it out there.
You understand that no one understands your saying.
Everyone understands my saying.
I made a thing.
Yeah.
I was like, this is my identity
Yep.
in a phrase. And then you're like, I need one of those. And you came up with something on the spot that you don't understand.
I do understand it. Teeter my totter, it's when it can mean a couple things, okay? If
a phrase can mean a couple of things, it means nothing.
No, it does. Just like democracy is cringe can mean a couple things.
No, democracy is cringe means democracy is cringe.
But it depends how you say it. Like you said it, or like I say it. Democracy is cringe. See, it's a different way.
It means the same thing.
No, it's inflection of tones. It's the cadence, okay?
It is
so
not.
When I say like, you're teetering my totter right now, it means you're getting on my nerves. The seesaw's going up and down. You're teetering my totter. Or I could say, Rich, you teeter my totter, meaning you complete me.
That's nonsense. That's not how words work.
Everyone knows. You're just not
If a word can mean multiple things, like, if it means the opposite of, like, in one context,
words can mean multiple things.
No, not multiple, but the opposite of things. If yes also means no,
it's an oxymoron. Yeah, wait, no does mean both yes and no in some situations.
Fine. Things can mean that.
Okay, wait,
it's
hold
nonsense.
on. Let me break you down. If I said, Richard, no, don't do that, or I said, Richard, no.
We're not going down that road.
This is a Bill Burr bit.
This is a Bill Burr bit.
That's a different podcast.
Different context. I'm gonna stop while we're behind.
Oh yeah. Okay. Next one. You ready?
Yeah.
The next piece of controversy. Oh man, this is the day we get canceled. That's it. That's it, Rich. It's last. Since it's our last episode, let's make this good.
Here's the thing: they're not going to cancel us. They're going to ship us. You're going to see some weird.
They're going to be like, "Oh, Austin did say you teeter my totter. You complete me."
I'm not anxiously waiting for the fan fiction to come out.
I'm not looking forward to these comments down below.
Yeah, no.
All right, the next piece of criticism for the New York Times. We're talking about the New York Times bestseller list, right? Still,
will we?
There was some tension there.
Yeah.
I felt like we were. Okay, the next one is double. Don't change this stuffed animal. Okay. So the next piece of criticism: double counting. Have you heard of this one?
Where you count something twice? Yeah, never heard of that.
Can we stop that episode? I want to go home. I am home, but I want to go home.
Home is where the heart is, and your heart ain't here.
So by including wholesalers in polls along with retail bookstores, books may be double counted is a problem with the list. Now, wholesalers report how much they sell to retailers, and retailers report how much they sell to customers. Thus, there can be an overlap with some reported books being sold twice within a given time frame. In addition, retailers may return books to wholesalers months later if they never sell, thus resulting in a sale being reported that never came to fruition. For example, mass market paperbacks can see as high as 40% return rates to the wholesaler. So the book itself, saying it sold 10,000 copies, it really might mean 6,000 copies. So that's a whole nother problem.
I guess the solution to that is you just don't count distributors.
But they do.
Oh. They still do?
They include wholesalers in the polls along with retail bookstores. That's what they do right now.
Oh, okay.
So
there's some type of math. There's some type of formula in there where they calculate that and go, hey, do these numbers line up? They probably know a right percentage where if they see a dramatic drop where, hey, the wholesalers have X percent higher than the localized booksellers, they know, okay, something's fishy, sales were off, and then they discount it.
I believe so.
That would probably make sense.
That would make sense.
Hey, do the numbers add up versus numbers not adding?
Right.
Exactly. I imagine there's a way to look at it.
And before I go into the next point of controversy, do you have one that you want to lead with that you found? It seemed like you researched this a little bit. I want to see if you had one for me.
I'm sure it's one of the more common ones that it's probably like the first thing you look up. If you look up a New York Times bestseller list controversy.
Yep.
one of the big ones that pops up is the author of the book Handbook for Mortals, which is a YA book back in 2017, written by Lani Sarem. And her book was removed from the bestseller list. It got onto the list and actively took off by the New York Times for basically fraud purposes.
Why?
Because the author did exactly what we've been talking about, had their publishing company went around and sold, like specifically bought books for libraries, bought orders in bulk, sub orders, and there's actually a lot of evidence that we can maybe even link down in the description below if you want to check out. Like, this isn't just a claim. People went into the numbers of independent researchers went into seeing where was this book being sold, in how many copies, where they were going, hey, look, there's not a lot of individual sales of this book. It's almost all bulk orders for these certain companies, like across the country. And they pulled up, like, hey, what are the impressions? So they looked up how many times it's been Googled. So you can kind of look at, so if you look at sales numbers, you can kind of also correlate that to how many times this book has been looked up on the internet. And you can see if there's any kind of spike. It would kind of correlate.
Yeah, right.
This book did not. There's no internet traffic on this book.
So purely nobody knew this book, but yet it was selling tens of thousands of copies.
That was the thing that set people's alarm bells off. Is, hey, there's no internet traction at all for this book. No one. There's Reddit forums. There's nothing there. There's nothing in Twitter, Google, nothing.
Right.
And yet it's selling a bunch of books.
That many copies. Right.
And so they went through it, and it was removed. This was actually, I believe this is the book and the controversy that started the whole dagger pin system that New York Times now has implemented.
Was this the one? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe so.
Because this isn't the only author that's done this.
It's not the only one, but I believe
there are several,
after 2017, after this book attempted, they implemented a new system where, technically it's still on there, but they put this on there because Lari Sarem, I think even to this day, is denied doing any of these nefarious things or denied that the publisher did anything like this. So I think in a way to kind of appease both people and they don't want to be sued, they put the dagger.
Just to put a correction there, I do have the case in 1995 that caused the dagger symbol.
Oh, okay.
It's been happening for a while. This was a case
appreciate
where,
the correction.
Yeah,
Michael, Tracy, and Fred Weyersima, they spent $200. You know why their books didn't sell? Hard last names. That's why they didn't legit sell, because you got to have a last name like Sanderson, Tolkien.
I feel the exact same way about presidents.
Yeah, if you don't have a good last name,
Oh no,
you're not getting my vote.
I remember listening to seeing a politician go like, "Oh, I'm running for president." I was looking at the last name, going like, "Ain't nobody pronouncing that." No one, that person ain't winning. that's too hard of a name. It doesn't fit on a bumper sticker.
You need like a 4-letter last name.
Oh yeah, no, like Jones, or I'm not going to actually get political and say names, but
Smith. Go with generic.
I'm even thinking like Obama. Obama's a great, easy name to put on a bumper sticker. Same thing with Trump. Like just Trump. That's a bumper sticker right there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of who is that person that ran in 2016? Weird name. I'm trying to remember. Oh god.
What party?
I think Democratic Party. There's a couple of them.
2016. That was Clinton, Sanders, and they were the two frontrunners, right?
I know. I'm trying to think of the primary. Whatever.
No more politics.
Too much. We already got too much.
Okay.
Too deep.
But anyways, with basically the last names of these two people is a hard one to pronounce. All right. I don't do English well. So they did this in 1995, and it's not illegal to do, but it is highly unethical. And that's where the New York Times had this dagger symbol to symbolize, hey, this was a bulk order. We need to flag this. This needs a little asterisk there. But yeah, going on from, what was your thing here?
Well, the main thing is it was removed from the New York Times bestseller. They tried getting it back and said they didn't do this. And her and her publishing team countered that actually the reason why there wasn't a lot of traditional traffic is they went through other means. Or they went to Comic-Con, they went to these convention sales and did a lot of pre-order and a lot of the groundwork there. So they were claiming that there was a lot of grassroots traction for the book, not, traditional publishing. So their claim was, hey, New York Times is bullying us because we didn't go through traditional means of advertising.
Right.
That was their claim. Claims kind of BS.
Now, if I was their lawyer, I would say, Your Honor, all of these were sold to Amish people who could not use the internet to look up the book. Your Honor, you are discriminated against the community I sold to.
I know that's the strat, selling it to the Amish. Sell a book to every single Amish person in the United States.
I do envy the Amish in a lot of ways. Don't you?
Oh, I do too.
Like, I think there's something. Of course, I've never lived it. I don't know the life, but just something about not having technology is.
Well, the belief that technology was wrong is totally true. It's entirely true.
You know what's hilarious?
Internet was a mistake.
You know what's hilarious? The one community we can bully without getting retribution because they're not watching this. It's the one community we're like, no, let's not make fun of them. Let's make fun of everybody else.
The thing is, we can make fun of them.
But we won't.
Because I agree with them. I'll make fun of everyone else. I like the Amish. The Amish are great. They're ideal. I don't live up to the correct standard that the Amish set. I'm not brave enough to live their life.
I know you say that statement. We know basically nothing about them other than the technology thing. Yeah. I'm so on board. I'm so on board, Rich. Actually, when I'm driving up on New York, Pennsylvania, also there's a bunch of Amish communities, and it's always very cute. I always see like kids with wagons and
it's not
and horses cute. And carriages.
It's also just, have you seen the Amish like deadlift a barn? Have you seen these videos of like the entire community like picks up the whole barn and walks it somewhere else?
Wow.
It's not like, or I'm like, that is not only community strength, like it's just, I can't imagine any other community being able to do that, to be able to get together that amount of people for a singular project and task at hand. There's no unity like that in our communities. The Amish are just built different and better.
I had no idea we'd ever have a segment on the Amish this video. The
Amish
awesome.
are the best. They're the best people, period.
The one community.
You heard it here first. Hey, any Amish kid that's on their 1 year...
1 day allowance?
No. They go out for a certain set of months.
Oh, you do know more than me then. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no. When they turn 18, they have like a period of time that they leave the community. They have I think it's like 6 months to a year where they live out with normal people, normal standard society, and then they get to decide whether they will come back to the Amish community or do they stay out with the rest of us heathens. And honestly,
so your message
really
is if you're out here right now, go back.
Well, no, it's the sign of it not being a cult that they actually allow. It's like, hey, look, go experience something else. Go see the stuff that we're telling you is not good for you. Go see it. And if you don't like, if you kind of now agree with us, you come on back. Makes sense to me. Like, the cult keeps you locked in. The Amish go try it out, see what these dirty heathens are doing. We're so confident you're gonna come on back because they all suck. You're gonna come crawling back to us.
It's like someone saying someone out there having a friend group and being like, "Why don't you go to Austin Richards' house?"
You'll see why. You'll come
right back. So that was all coming off the manipulation of authors with the book. Getting on the list, right? Mm-hmm. Do you want to go on to the next point?
What is the next point?
The next point is the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay.
Where this is kind of, we were talking about this a little bit when it came to selling and being on the New York Times bestseller list in the first place and increasing sales. Now, once a book makes it onto the list and it's heavily marketed as a bestseller, purchased by readers who seek out bestsellers, if there's a group of people like that, it's given preferential treatment by retailers. So it might not just be the fact that you don't look for a New York Times bestseller list, right? were talking about that. Like we look for something that someone else recommended, that restaurant that's packed, that whatever the analogy is.
But the other thing I did say is the cover that catches my eye.
Yeah,
I'll buy.
Now here's the thing though: the retailer will preferentially put New York Times bestseller in those covers where you can see them, because you're not going to buy a book you don't see or haven't heard about. So this is where that self-fulfilling prophecy comes from, where if it has that bestseller list, it will be given the preferential treatment by retailers online and offline, and who create these special bestseller categories where you can get these in-store placements and discounts on them specifically because they're bestsellers. So it could create that cycle where, hey, you know why this book sold so much more. Maybe not just because it's a bestseller, but because it's a bestseller, the retailers treat it with preferential treatment. And that leads to it selling more and more and having this cycle.
I would tend to agree with you. That sounds about more right than it just someone sees it on the bestseller list and like, oh yeah, I gotta pick it up.
Right.
Probably more what you're saying is retailers treat it differently now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's a snowballing effect.
And I wanted to, if you don't mind, if I could sit you all cozy here. And I have a last point here to make, and then you can make whatever stupid point you want to make. But there was this court case that I thought was really interesting.
Go ahead, give it to me.
There's this court case against the New York Times bestseller list. In 1983, author William Peter Blatty. That's a simple last name. I still couldn't say it. I think it's a me problem. So he sued the New York Times for $6 million, claiming that his book Legion, which was filmed as The Exorcist 3, had not been included in the list due to either negligence or intentional falsehood, saying it should have been included due to very high sales. And the Times countered that the list was not mathematically objective. The Times said it's not a mathematically objective list, but is rather editorial content and thus protected under the Constitution as free speech. So they're saying this is not objective, this is editorial content. So Blatty appealed to the Supreme Court, which declined to hear the case. So the lower court ruling, which supported the New York Times, saying yes, it's editorial content and thus not objective factual content. So the Times has every right to exclude the book from the list, essentially encapsulating our whole conversation here that the New York Times can technically do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, basically. It's a risk because when you have a very editorial... So the difference between just doing pure sales numbers is if a book's on the list and people go, why is that there? It's like, you have evidence. It's on the list. Don't complain to us about it. You guys bought it.
Right.
There's a bit of safety in that. Their reputation is not at stake for putting it there. Versus Michelin star restaurant. If a Michelin star puts a Michelin star on a restaurant and that restaurant sucks, that is on their reputation and they are taking the hit. Now it's the same thing with the New York Times. They're trying to kind of have it both ways. Of one, it's, hey, these are just the sales numbers. Don't come crying to us if your book is or isn't on here. But then on the other side, they're saying, hey, it's the editorialized list. This is our thing. We get to put what we want on this list.
Right.
That's a weird combo of things to have, to try and hide behind the protection of it being an editorialized list, but then also not being upfront and honest about it. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah,
it's trying to play both fields.
Yeah, I totally get you. Now, you know what? Good summary there. Good little snippet, Rich.
Well, thank you, Austin.
Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Other than, I think you did a good job today. You researched quite a bit. You corrected me on things I didn't know. And I appreciate all the work that you do.
Okay, right now you're teetering my toddler in that way. You know which way I mean it.
No, I don't. I could be freaking you out because I don't do this, especially on camera.
Exactly.
But you know what really teeters my totter? The fact that your book, Draft 1, is not on my desk right now.
Can I finish this with a high note, maybe a better note to end the podcast on?
You could try.
I'm going to ask you some yes or no questions, okay?
Go ahead.
Rapid fire. You have to answer instinctually right away, okay?
Got it.
Okay, you ready?
Uh-huh.
To the Ramble, what's our subscriber count going to be at the end of the year? What's the goal? It's a new year.
95,000.
That's a great goal. Okay.
Yep.
You ready? Next one? Is democracy cringe?
Of course.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.